Welcome everybody to the Storytime channel. My name is Steven, and today we have some pro-revenge stories. Our first story of the day is by Canna Dark. Let your Rottweiler poop in the playground? Enjoy the wrath of a mom group. We have a lovely playground set in a decent-sized sandpit with a high curb around it separating it from the rest of the park. The curb is a popular place for moms, dads, guardians to hang out, pre-COVID, while their kiddos ran around the playground. Then it started. We began discovering massive piles of dog poop just under the sand. More accurately, the kids were finding it, usually by falling in it. Every day, there would be 2 new hidden landmines somewhere just waiting for a kid's bare foot to discover them. It got to the point where someone brought a gravel rake and a bag of plastic bags to the park so the sand could be raked to find the inevitable piles before the kids jumped in. We called by law enforcement, and they said they needed some idea of when the deposits were being made. So a bunch of the moms decided they were going to end this once and for all. They took turns staking out the park until they figured out when the guy was coming and going. Then one of them figured out where he lived. A third managed to get a picture of him and his dog. Another asked the person whose house faced the park if they could temporarily install a camera outside his door. They gathered all the evidence and submitted it to the bylaw. The bylaw officer assigned to the case was so disgusted that he took the time to stake out the park and took his own images of the guy leading his dog to the sandpit, waiting for him to poop, then covering the poop with sand using his shoe. Then rather than simply fining him $250, he took him to court, where the judge levied a much higher fine due to him being such an egregious repeat offender and due to the health risk to the kids. The mom group also printed laminated posters with a picture of the guy and his dog and posted them all over the neighborhood with the headline, "I'm the park pooper," written in bold letters. Haven't seen him in years. I suspect he moved. If there was a serial park pooper, would you go out of your way to try and catch them and expose them, report them to the authorities? Let me know in the comments down below. Our next story is by Astakask. One-party consent recordings. The kryptonite of a-hole supervisors. I'm a paramedic, and after many years of working regular ground ambulance, I decided I had enough. My whole career I was either a glorified Uber driver, being spit on by drunks, bit by meth heads, or chauffeuring people between hospitals. Though once in a blue moon I saved a life. There isn't a lot of different jobs you can parlay an EMS career into. So I elected to move into the private sector and got a job doing basically the same thing at a mine in a remote environment. Worked 2 weeks straight with 2 weeks off, less stress, and an enviable salary. On the surface, this was a sweet gig. Almost heaven compared to the regular stretcher jockey job I came from, and it would have been such if not for the absolute psychopath who managed the EMS services out there. I didn't work directly from the mine's operator. Instead, I was employed by a contractor. The coordinator, my local boss as he was called, was a golden boy as far as the mine co was concerned. There wasn't a butt he didn't kiss or bigwig he wouldn't suck up to, and I admit he could be charming. Quite adept at impersonating a human being, actually. It wasn't long before I discovered he reserved decency for everyone but his subordinates. His behavior started out as petty micromanaging, which was irritating, but then progressed to insults, put-downs, name-calling. "Hey, dumb butt," was his usual way to get my attention, and outright hostility. The man clearly enjoyed being a small-time workplace despot and knew he could get away with it because of his reputation with our paymasters. It was around the 2nd month mark before I really warmed up to my coworkers. There were 8 of us, including myself and the dip crap in chief, and not a single one of them spoke a nice word about him. Most were resigned to him acting like a massive runt because the 2-week holiday every month along with the pay rate. They also told me every complaint only fell on deaf ears, provoked retaliation, and again, his relationship with the client made him nigh untouchable. This is when I started recording everything and did so with these 2 assumptions. 1. The company would only act with serious proof of malfeasance. 2. His acts of jerkery would only escalate. Neither assumption proved false. I had nearly 3 months of audio tapes of him just being his regular a-hole self before he went too far. About a week into the shift, I showed up to our station and was called into his office, only to be informed I was being let go, and my replacement would be there in a few hours. I was to go back to our accommodations, pack my crap up, and report there. Well, freak, I thought before doing as I was bidden. Upon arriving back to the office with my suitcases, the sadist started laughing and said, "No one's coming to replace you. You're so freaking gullible." It was a mock firing, and I'm sure he feverishly jacked himself off to it later that night. I was livid and let loose on him, finally ending a tirade with a malicious hint. Can you imagine what the office would do if they could have heard all this BS? Unrepentant to the last, he coldly stared at me before replying, "Can you imagine what they would do if a bunch of empty beer cans turned up and I told the office I saw you drinking?" Having recorded all this, and knowing my glorious victory was assured, I feigned capitulation to carry on with my day. My first day off, I sent in a detailed letter to the company, along with recordings, and as expected, they fired his butt. What came after was righteous cackling laughter for hours. I wonder if this is how Napoleon felt after winning at Austerlitz. States that allow one-party consent recordings, they save a lot of people. I think that's really all you can say about that. Our next story is by I Am Mushroom 69. You want to pee all over the toilet seat/floors and not flush? I live with a bunch of degenerates who refuse to clean up after themselves. I've been pleading for months for them to clean up after themselves. They agreed on a very simple cleaning schedule and then did it for 2 weeks. So the trend the last month has not been flushing the toilet and pissing all over the toilet seat and floor, amongst other things. I've started to refuse to clean up after myself and have been obnoxiously dirty in an inconvenient way. Nothing I'm doing is anything they haven't done to me before, but I'm doing it in a way that proves my point. I'm just sick of cleaning up after grown men. So I decided that I was going to leave such a massive mud monkey in the toilet that they would be so repulsed they would take toilet cleanliness a little more seriously. In acting out this plan, I decided to devour as much food as I possibly could and hold my poop until my bowels were about to burst. This superhuman feat took a lot of preparation. The amount of food I digested is actually disgusting. I started with breakfast, where I demolished 4 eggs, 2 sausages, 2 slices of bacon, 4 pieces of buttered toast, and some home fries. I could already tell this was going to be difficult to maintain throughout the day, but I persevered. When it came time for lunch, I was still super full from breakfast, but I'm the kind of guy who sets a goal and goes for it. So I smoked some weed and gobbled up a frozen pizza. At this point, I could see the home stretch and all I needed was dinner. I figured it was go big or go home at this point, so I hopped on Uber Eats, ordered 2 burgers, a chicken wrap, and a milkshake from Wendy's. This was difficult as it was equal parts enjoyment and equal parts instant regret, as I could feel my stomach expand in real time. At this point, the seeds had been planted and it was a waiting game. I went to bed knowing there was potential for my pipes to burst in the middle of the night. Morning came around, and as I woke up, I could feel the mounting pressure building up inside. After an hour or so of browsing Reddit on my phone, the time had come. It was time to drop the kids off at the pool. The next 20 minutes would be a mixture of uncomfortable bowel movements and relief as the pressure slowly alleviated. What was left was a masterpiece. It was magnificent. This landmine was sure to send anyone running for the hills. I'm not gonna lie, I was proud of myself for this one. It filled a quarter of the toilet bowl. It looks like a brown iceberg as a large portion of it wasn't submerged underwater due to the pure unadulterated mass of it. Seriously, this thing was impressive. It was probably the size of 2 to 3 softballs, and it all smushed together instead of presenting itself as separate logs. My trap was set, and now I was eager to see the fallout from my toxic fecal waste. Lo and behold, a couple hours later, the time came. One of the roommates, who was the worst toilet offender, approached me and said, "Hey man, I think we need to do a better job cleaning the toilet." Success. I don't know about any of you guys, but I'm sorry for even reading this story. I was disgusted just reading these words aloud, let alone experiencing what went down in this story. Man. Our next story is by Lone Socks. I gave back my cheating ex's handmade gifts in a very thoughtful way. Boyfriend cheated. Let's call him Tate. I was blindsided because we were together for 6 months, close friends for a year beforehand. Cheated the entire time. He told me so many times how serious he was, wanted to get married, had kid names picked out, etc. Lying piece of crap. Even begged me not to block him. But of course I did. He handcrafted these wall shelves for me out of wood and materials from his junkyard he works at. I threw away everything in my house that reminded me of him, but the dumpster just didn't seem right for these darn things. The morning I dumped Tate, I downloaded Bumble an hour later as an unhealthy distraction. I matched with my ex, we'll call him Austin, that I had blocked for several months during the relationship, literally 10 minutes after creating the profile. To clarify, he paid $2 to super swipe me. Austin and I pretty much grew up together. Cutting him off was basically me losing my best friend, but hey, gotta do what's healthy for your relationship. Till it ends. Whatever. I word vomit everything to Austin. Hey, yeah, so my BF was cheating on me the whole time, and he got super verbally abusive after I nursed him back to health after a car accident he was in a few months ago. And then he borrowed my car to go cheat on me while I was recovering from a brain injury last month. Oh, and my grandmother passed away, so I'm going through some crap. We meet to catch up, and when I'm hanging out with him, I come up with my diabolical plan. I say, "Hey Austin, can you go to the junkyard that Tate works at and donate these shelves he made for me?" Tate and Austin have never met, but Tate has seen pictures. He hated Austin for obvious reasons, the main one being that Austin is older by a few years and, generally speaking, has his life together compared to Tate. What better way to send the shelves back to him along with, in the flesh, the man he apparently hated? Austin agreed immediately. Saw the poetic justice I did in it as well. Austin goes first thing in the morning to donate them. Austin and Tate lock eyes at the gate of the junkyard while Austin is parked in his car, and Tate, I guess, immediately realizes who Austin is and tries to walk away. Austin honks his horn at him and shouts, "I'm donating some shelves." Tate slowly turns around and yells, "Put them in the dumpster," and runs off. Austin exits his car and goes into the facility to make his presence known and is greeted by 4 unhappy employees. Austin tells them he's donating shelves. They glare and point him in the right direction. Austin gives them to the intake woman and tells her, "Oh, someone who works here made these. When he sees them, he'll know," and drives away. I know he's not hurting at all from destroying my trust, but at least I got to ruin your day by sending Austin to your workplace and having your workers wonder, what the freak was that all about, you a-hole? I mean, the implications of Austin showing up, turning those shelves in, Tate knowing exactly who they are. I don't know if the guy has a heart, but if there is a heart in there somewhere, it probably got a knife twisted into it experiencing that. So that was a pretty darn good revenge. And our final story of the day is by J Triumph STR. I was doing some basic food shopping this afternoon at my local grocery store, and I wanted to get a bag of salad mix. I head over to that section, and there's this woman going through every single bag of romaine lettuce, touching every romaine heart, and pretty much had her head and shoulders all the way in the bottom shelf of the fridge, looking for, I guess, the perfect bag of lettuce. I'm trying to be patient, and I wait a good minute, and I politely ask if I can quickly reach over and grab the bag of salad mix. I know she heard me, but ignored me. I wait a few more seconds and I ask again. This apparently made her quite mad, and she started telling me that I need to wait and that she's almost done, and I'm so rude and some other stuff that was hard to hear through her mask. I grabbed what I needed and moved on while she stared me down in a huff. I went on to continue my shopping as I caught another glimpse of her staring me down. A few minutes later, I passed her again, going through the tomatoes and touching every one of them. Not exaggerating. I went behind her, grabbed the romaine lettuce out of her cart, and put it right back in the fridge and mixed it in with the others for good measure. I walked away with a big grin on my face and went about my business. I don't know how many people will get this reference, but these kinds of people remind me of the movie Clerks. In the movie, they have this one woman who is obsessed with finding the oldest or longest lasting date on the milk, so they're pulling every single carton out looking for it. And there was also a guy that was obsessed with finding the perfect carton of eggs and would just kind of be doing weird stuff with the eggs, capped off with them for some reason, smashing one of the eggs on the door of the refrigerator. Just find one that looks good and grab it and go. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So if you have a favorite story of the day, let me know which story and why in the comments down below. But besides that, if you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a like, and if you haven't, subscribe and turn notifications on so you'll never miss an upcoming video. No matter what you do, whether it's just viewing the video, liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, I appreciate the heck out of it. Every little thing that you do helps the channel grow that much more, and I can't thank you enough for it. So until next time, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll be right here next time on the Storytime channel.